Let us see. Ha ha ha. Hello. Hi. My name is Pascal. I'm helping the Brave House and taking over for Kita today. Just popped in, trying to figure out where our guest of honor is today. Oh, can I wave? How does one wave? Ha ha ha. Hi. All right, so I'm gonna see if I can figure this out. Nope, that's not the right one. There we go. Are you going to let me click you? Go live with, I'm trying to click. Let's try this again. You?
Hi.
Hello.
Okay. Hi. Sorry, I wasn't
How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you for joining us today with Brave House, which helps a lot of immigrant women from, I believe, 17 to 24, if I remember correctly, and make sure that they get like the resources that they need, whether it's legal, whether it is food, and that kind of stuff. So introduce yourself.
Yeah. Well, everyone, my name is Alondra, the Brave. Okay.
I can it's kind of going in and out, and I'm not sure if it's you or me.
Can I? I think I might. Is this good now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone. My name is Alondra, and um, and I interned at the Brave House as a community advocate. So I was making sure that everyone was connecting to the right services. You know, if they needed food, if they needed housing, stuff like that. And yes, me, and college student.
Oh, are you still in college right now?
I'm actually graduating this. Well, hopefully, right? Graduating this year.
We're going to speak it into existence, so you
Right,
will be
right.
graduating this
Pandemic.
year. What are you graduating with?
I'm graduating with a psychology major and a minor in education. Sorry, I forgot.
Wonderful. And like a brief thing, do you have any plans for that before we get into like our main topic?
Yeah.
Or
Actually, right now I'm looking into graduate programs. Because psychology is such a like broad major, you can literally go into like business, like you can go into education, you can go into law enforcement. So many things that you can do. So right now I'm actually just narrowing down and be like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? It
I
was,
mean, I believe in the rest of your life, but I also believe in one's ability to pivot. So, you might make
right,
a decision now, and if it's not something that you want, you have time to
right,
like
right.
whether you want to go back to school or figure out another way, like you can definitely do it. It's not like the end of the world if you start one path and decide no, and go
I
down
want to
another.
switch. Yeah, that's what I want to though. So I'm like figuring out my life now for the next like 5 years. So it's
Exactly.
like, oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Exactly. So today we are going to be talking about colorism and what that is and what that means and how that works within the different societies of color. So, do you have a definition of colorism that you would want to put on the table first, or?
Right. Um, well, for me, colorism is basically the discrimination against darker skinned individuals. And interestingly enough, it happens a lot of the times within the marginalized community. So I can speak on behalf of the Latinx community. You know,
Mhm.
an example that's like very widely known is there's this phrase that's called "mejorando la raza" or "bettering the race," and that basically says like if you have a baby, if you marry someone, it has to be someone who's lighter skinned, so that your darker skin won't be passed on to your child. And that's like a way of saying like, oh, that's how you're bettering the race, like being whiter. And that's the discrimination against dark skinned individuals.
Most definitely. I can kind of relate to that, especially as a black woman, but also in Jamaica, they have this saying, if you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, stand back.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and it also depends because of like the variation. So in Jamaica, I'd be considered brown,
Right.
and my mother would be considered dark. And there was a period of time where like it was to the point that they didn't even, my dad's friends were giving him issues for like dating my mother, which is crazy. So,
Right, and it still happens. That's the thing, right? And like, I guess that's also the thing with colorism. It's so subtle sometimes. It's not like
mhm.
downright like racist, where you're like, wow, that's wrong. Like colorism is very like in between the lines, and you like gotta know what they're referring to.
Yeah. And sometimes and it's interesting how it can like pop up unexpectedly as well. So you just
Right.
quite never quite know when it's going to happen. And people might not mean as much by it, but it's based off of usually a mindset of just like an I don't even know why we have that mindset. It's like based off of the influence of probably us being held to standards that aren't necessarily our own or don't
Right.
match our own physicality. So what do you think we can do about that? How would we get away from moving or like engaging in that?
I think that like the first thing is having conversations about it. Like, you know, having conversations about race can be like a little intimidating for people, especially, you know, like if they benefit off of it. So it's like a little tricky to sometimes talk about it, but I definitely think having conversations, and like I can speak to my experience, you know, with my mom. Like it can be a little hard to be like, Mom, that's not, you know, right to say. And it's like you can't really, I don't know, like you said, like it comes out in conversations. I know for me, like I might be having a family dinner, or like, you know, hanging out with cousins, family, stuff like that. So just being like, hey, that you know what you said doesn't like it isn't right. Like, why are you saying that? And again, it can get very tricky because some people do get defensive and they're like, no, 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 like that's not it. Like that's not what I meant. Like, wow, you're over exaggerating. Like, wow, you know, like you're dragging it. That's not what I meant at all. Um, but just being like, you know, like this is actually why this we have this mindset, and like maybe look into, you know, reading this. Something that I do for sure. It's like sometimes I see Instagram stories. I'm like, well, let me send this to somebody that might like want to read this, you know.
Yeah.
And it's super easy now because we have access to like the internet, social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and like, you know, now we don't have to go to a 4-year university to like learn these topics, which is often the case before. And now we can go like literally in our phones, like Google some stuff and learn a little bit.
Mhm.
So that's basic. That's one of the things that I'm thinking about, like educating ourselves, trying to help others educate themselves. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way for me, to be honest. And I think I was just doing research on this, but definitely like, you know, colorism definitely came from this caste system that happened in Latin America, where it was like people at the top, you know, lighter skin, European, like they got the best jobs. I mean, it still happens today, but like it was like
Yeah.
set things where it's like if you're whiter, you're getting this job, you're gonna be a leader, but if you're dark skin, like you can't work this job, you can't get an education, and like you can see how that's been passed along generations when you're like, okay, if I'm whiter, I have more opportunities. If I'm darker, like these opportunities aren't for me, and people aren't gonna like, take me seriously. So like
Yeah.
just sharing that.
So have you ever been sort of like a victim of colorism? And like how did you either get through that, overcome that, or like maybe make changes that made it a better situation for you?
Right. That's the thing. Well, when I was I'm actually like the darkest in my family, like skin tone.
Hmm.
Um so I definitely love family parties. I would go to parties, and my sister, like we look like twins. But she's like very light. She's lighter skin than I am.
Hmm.
So for her, it'd be like, you know, like friends of my mom would be like, oh, you're so, like, they would tell her, like, you're so cute, you're so adorable, like, wow. And then they would get to me and they'd be like, oh my God, like, you're so brown, you're so tan, like, oh my God, you know? And it would just be left at that. And so, like, I remember having this conversation with my mom actually, like, a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, that was kind of rude. Like, I don't know if you heard that conversation and, like, people talking about me, but yeah, that, like, definitely can affect someone. Um, and small comments like that, and like as I've grown older, like I've learned to recognize, like, yeah, this is um and especially someone I don't know. So yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
that. I'm That's pretty much what I've experienced so far, that I've learned to recognize, and this is only because I've gone to college, I've read materials, I've like educated myself. that I'm able to be like, wow, like I can recognize these and pick these out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Really sweet. Because sometimes when you're already in it, and if you don't necessarily have the tools, you might not realize what's going on, or maybe why you're feeling that way. In a weird way, it's sort of like microaggressions.
Right.
Um, and so, like, sometimes you're going through life and you don't really think that it's a problem. And then sometimes for me, I find myself just really down. And I'm like, and when you really take an outside look, you're just like, okay, these are like the little mini attacks, and it just all built up. And now I'm suffering the little effects from that. But yeah, so all right, so you said you talked about talking with people directly, making sure Googling and sharing different articles. Are there any like sites that are really helpful? Are there any other tools, and or if you know if someone wanted to sort of help other people in that situation or be an ally, how would they go about doing that?
Right.
I asked a lot of questions. My bad.
No, you're fine. Um, for me, I don't have like a sorry, like an account from Instagram, but I definitely like YouTube. There's this channel called Me Too, which is like a extension from BuzzFeed actually. But the creators are like Latinx Black individuals.
Mhm.
And they definitely started to like discuss like what colorism is, how it affects the Latinx community, how everything kind of can occur, right?
Mhm.
And so their videos are very educational, but they also have like a more laid back feeling to it, where it's like I'm not going in there like scholastic. I'm not gonna like dates, everything, but I'm going in there
Yeah.
just to learn something. And so that definitely is a very good tool. Um, for I can only speak when my feed, like sometimes my feed comes up with like a bunch of information. Some of my friends share some CNN, not all of it, but some of it. And so yeah, there's different accounts on that. There's also really wonderful books, authors that you can read.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a lot of stuff. I'm sorry, I'm like blanking. I don't
Oh
have
no,
the
sorry. I know
information.
I kind of probably put you on the spot, especially with like the rapid fire questions. My bad.
No, you're good. But yeah, I think social media has been a very powerful tool in sharing information, having information. So that's definitely one of the things where I'm like, if you want to learn something, you can literally Google like Black Lives Matter, colorism, hashtag, right? Black Lives
Mhm.
Matter, and a lot of information will come up. Um,
I think Lauren said that they have a
yes,
section on
that's
the
really
website.
yeah. It's like, okay, right.
Uh, oh, that's perfect with resources. Okay, that you put together.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what, like I know I have this. Okay, so I have a couple. There's a book that's called Between the World and Me by I'm probably gonna butcher it, me,
I've read that yet.
right? Me, I want to say his name right. Me,
Yeah,
Todd,
same here.
and
Mhm.
right. And then there's Women Raised in Class by Angela Davis. There's so many other books. And then for Instagram, there's one called Bad Dominican 2.0. That's Twitter. Sorry, Twitter. And then Bad Dominicana IG. So there's definitely a lot of stuff that people can literally just put like hashtag this, hashtag that, and it will come up.
Great. And so, random question, because for me, I feel like in a weird way, colorism is actually really closely linked to the media.
Right. Yes.
Do you find that as well?
Oh my
And,
God.
do you think that more, wait, what did you say?
No, I was gonna
Go
say
for it.
yes. Like yes. Like definitely. I mean, like I can like growing up, like telenovelas are like essential. Like soap operas are essential to the Latinx community, and like literally every protagonist was like this blonde, beautiful, like light skin, blue eyes. Like you couldn't even tell. Like you could tell she was European or somehow, right?
Hmm.
And then you would have like people who were like cleaners, who were like maids. Like they would be like darker skin. So that in itself, like even today, when you see Netflix productions made in Mexico, like there's no representation, to be honest. It's all like light skin, light eyes, blonde hair, straight hair. Like that's pretty much the prototype. As well as like, I mean, in Univision, like the coverage that they use a lot of the times for individuals who are black or darker skin, like
Hmm.
even the words that they use are so much different. Like they're criminals, like they're not suspects, but they're criminals, even though like nothing's really proven that. And that like narrates the whole story.
Yeah. So the question is, how do we change that? I mean, like, as I just like throw out random things that are just like,
Right,
"Mwah."
right. It makes sense because we want to come up with solutions. Honestly, like we just need to invest in more individuals who are willing to go into media who are, like from marginalized communities who are Black or Latinx, anything. And just starting to narrate our own stories and be like, no, like this is where I'm gonna like own my story and this is how I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of it comes with like, and that can just be like a result of like individuals who are in power right now benefit from this colorism, benefit from discrimination. Like, because if we see like who's at the top, right? Who's making the decisions.
Exactly. So, and that, I guess that's the thing is like, in a weird way, we have to find a way to like fund our own things because sometimes in order, especially if it's taken over by, I think, a more powerful or like funded by someone more powerful, you have less control over it.
Right.
So, there might be people who are out there who would like to have more visual diversity, but if the higher ups they're paying are
Right.
saying no, and you want to, have your art out there, I guess it changes it. So, but yeah, so it's going to be interesting, but I do think that media can play a huge part, and even just like seeing and appreciating our own kind of beauty, and just knowing and seeing other people that when they're represented in a positive light that look like you. So
Exactly. Representation. That's literally all we need.
it's so important.
Right.
It can really just completely shape how like what the standards are that you set for yourself. So, but yeah. Trying to think if I have any more questions. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add? Do you have anything else you'd like to?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. That's the thing because like we definitely know there's discrimination against dark-skinned individuals, but I think the thing that I really want to like just emphasize is that like this discrimination doesn't come from an outside group, but like a lot of the times it comes within the same group, right? Like again, I'm gonna say like I'm speaking from the point of view of like Latinos. Like you have like Latinos who are like saying stuff and who are say like, oh, this Black person, this other Black person, and they're referring to another dark skinned individual, or it's just discrimination within our own group, and that like we can say like there's discrimination between Blacks and white, and that doesn't affect us, but like it does affect us in a way or another, and we need to understand like yes, that's the result of this whole other system.
I feel like the discrimination based from black and white then adds to the colorism, right? Because the lighter you are,
Right.
chances are the less that you have to face in that discrimination between black and white. And so therefore, based off of how that is, it can, I think, have a huge effect and probably is one of the contributing effects to this.
Sorry.
No, no, you're fine.
No, you're
But it's just interesting because I just feel like, there's nothing wrong with having more melanin because that's basically all that really is.
Right.
And in a way, it's basically based off of where your ancestors were and how their skin processed vitamin D. And so
Right.
if you have more of it, basically you're probably closer to the equator and, you didn't need to as efficiently
Right.
process vitamin D. And then the lighter you go out, that's really the only difference in terms of skin. So, but it's just fascinating how like that little difference we utilize it to kind of weaponize it against ourselves, unfortunately.
Right. I
But
mean, if you think about it, like skin is the one thing that you can point out and be like, you're different, right? Like that is the one thing that's such a physical marker that's not going to change for someone. And
yeah.
unfortunately, like that's the one thing that people decided to mark on and be like, that's not right. This is right.
So real quick, because the comment of like people don't change now, or you can't really change. Thoughts on skin whitening because that is a real thing
Very
that definitely affects us, and I definitely know one or two people who have done that. So thoughts?
Well, first off, like bleach for the like any part of your body is like gonna be dangerous, period, and it can like harm you literally, like medically. Don't try it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't know. I personally, like, I know I've been, I'll say it, my mom has told me to use bleaching cream before, right? And, like, if you use it, that's a personal choice, and it's, like, fine. For me, I wouldn't want to, just because, like, this is my skin, this is the skin I'm growing up in, like, I shouldn't be able to change it, you know? At least, like, not to the point where I want to assimilate to being a white person.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I guess, like, then people can argue, like, well, you color your hair, right? Like, you bleach your hair. But it's like
different.
right. I was gonna say, but like that's like everyone do that. Like, I can color my hair red. Like, that's, you know, like that's that's fine. But like, yeah, I definitely.
It's also less likely to cause harm, like, because, you know, you coloring your hair, number one, hair will definitely grow back. Not saying that melanin won't come back, because obviously it will, which is why it's like a continuous thing. But, you know, you can always cut off your hair, unless you have a really sensitive scalp. The likelihood of dyes doing any physical damage to you is different. So, like, although you change your hair or add or whatever, it's different than chemically messing with your skin to the point that, like, it could be like you could get skin cancer, right? like
you can burn your skin literally.
Yeah, like, it's
like,
actually,
I was gonna say, I think some of them actually have mercury on them.
Oh,
right, yeah, that was a while back. I don't know if they, like, still have that, but some of them did have mercury, which is not great for your skin.
It's not good for your body.
Right. It's not great for anything in your body. But it's also, like, I don't know, like, I find it pretty interesting because, like, dark skin is discriminated against, but also some people want to have tan skin and, like, be, like, a little bit darker, and it's like, I'm confused.
Pick a side. Pick. All right, you can't want it and hate it, or not hate it, but just like it at the same time, or discriminating against it. But yeah, we are fascinating beings.
Right. Yeah, to say the least. Yeah.
Because I feel like we're never really happy, or we never allow ourselves to be happy and just comfortable with who and how we are. So I don't know.
Honestly. Yeah, but don't do bleaching creams. Please don't do it. Also, I feel like probably bleaching creams are, like, definitely such a, like, economical factor. Like, I, like, definitely, like, I haven't looked into it, but definitely, like, see, like, who produces these bleach creams, like, how do they market towards certain people, like.
Oh, they market it to everyone. Everyone who is not white is
right.
Indians, Asians, Black people, Latina, like Latino, how do
Latinx, Latinos, whatever.
Valid. You know, anyone with melanin, which is a huge, actually, population, and so therefore it kind of. I mean, there are some reasons to do it. If you have, like, vitiligo and you want to make something even, cool. But, like, if you're doing it for other reasons, I don't know.
Yeah. It's also just, like, skin, like, it's such a social, how do I say this? It's like a social construct, like, race in general. Like, if you think about it, they literally, like, labeled people to be like, all right, you're gonna be in the top and you're gonna be at the bottom. Like, that's how it's gonna be.
Yes, legitimately.
Like, that's literally it.
It's fascinating to me. I remember I was in, like, African American Studies class, and my professor asked me, he was just like, do you relate more to your race or your ethnicity, right? And I said ethnicity, and everyone else basically said race, and I was just very fascinated. So, random aside, and I'm just gonna, which one do you identify with more?
Right.
Your race or your ethnicity?
Right. It's so tricky because, like, I was actually born in Mexico, so I always identified as Mexican, period.
Yeah.
But then I grew up in the U.S., and that was a whole different concept because, like, I'm not Mexican American, but I grew up in the U.S., but I'm not American, but I'm also not Mexican because I didn't grow up in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
And then I wasn't until, like, I think it was, like, senior year high school, there was, like, well, you know, Latino isn't, like, a race, right? And I was like, I was so shook. I literally was like, what? Like, I've been identified as this one thing that doesn't exist. Like, what?
I mean, it might exist soon since we just we basically made it up. We can basically make up anything, right?
Right. So for me, I like to say, like, I was born in Mexico and I identify as Latina because that's how I like socialize myself, and that's pretty much how people are like to be like people are gonna socially like categorize me as Latina wherever I go.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing it's so difficult when you identify as something but somebody else can identify you as something else that you're not.
Yeah.
And for you having to explain like no, that's not right, like all the time can be like super like exhausting and draining.
Valid. I always just chose ethnicity because at the end of the day, the different cultures and the people that belong to those different cultures came together to create my parents, right? And at the end of the day, that's what created me. And so even if sometimes I don't always relate to it as directly, it doesn't change the fact that that was part of my history, right? As opposed to anything else. So I was born in the US, but both of my parents are immigrants. Dad is Jamaican, mother is British. And so I definitely say I'm Jamaican American because I'm a dual citizen, right? So, but I would say I've been British Jamaican American based off of all those cultures. And they did like a switch. It was interesting. But I also, because I stayed in like my formative years in Jamaica for a little bit, I didn't know I was Black and what that meant until I came to this country. So that's also why I don't really.
Right, and I've definitely heard that from one of my friends where he's like, being Black American is different than being Black somewhere else that's outside of the U.S.
Mm.
So
because you don't know. Well, especially if it's a predominantly like Black or color filled area, you wouldn't know that you stood out or what. Or aside though, pulling it back to colorism, because there are negative connotations sometimes, even in Jamaica, you had a higher chance of being viewed negatively if you were of darker skin. So
right. Yeah, research has shown that like if you're darker skinned, you're considered less attractive, less trustworthy, less likely to have like positions of power, less smart even. So it's like socially categorized.
Have they seen Idris Elba? That man is just so beautiful and just so articulate. And it's fine. That's whatever.
Right.
It's baffling how you kind of like, no one really likes to be generalized and put into boxes. And I understand the logic of, we don't always have the mental energy to kind of like break everyone up and really get to know them. But the fact that we do this so widespread is just really, really sad, because while we're judging other people, they're doing the same thing to us, and we would feel indignant and upset if when that is done to us. And so like the lack of empathy is real and interesting. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So trying to figure out how to end this.
Right. Right. You could be like, bye.
No. So I remember when I was interviewed, one of the questions that was asked it was sort of like a game, but I do not remember all the questions for this game. But one of it was sort of like, what do you think the world needs more of? If you could like name one thing, what do you think the world needs more of?
I definitely do believe it's empathy. It's like I study psychology, so I'm gonna say these, but
I put the same thing, so I feel you.
But it's been shown that like a lot of CEOs like actually lack empathy. And so I think you need to understand the lives of others and the shoes they walked and the situations they've been in, and just be more understanding of that situation, and really try to understand like, why is this happening. Also, I'm gonna throw this in there, knowledge, like definitely try to know like, okay, this is happening, why did it happen, how did it get this way, what occurred, not even just today, but what occurred years ago that let it go this far. And once you know like what happened, and once you understand everything, then you can be like, okay, well, this happened, how do we counteract that, how can we do it better?
Yeah, valid. Definitely. And side note, with the CEOs, I remember they were saying this one thing about how male CEOs tend to become more compassionate and less sexist sometimes, statistically, when they have baby girls, right?
That makes sense.
Because the fact they're raising their own children, or like they're playing a part, and having the thought of having anyone tell their girl or their daughter that they're not worthy or worth or can't do something changes that. So that was the
Right.
whole and if you could be anywhere, COVID aside, where would you want to live?
With no pandemic.
With no pandemic, where would you be right now? Like, you could be anywhere. Where do you want to be?
Oh, damn. I saw this on Instagram this morning, and there's a bridge in China that's like a circle that's suspended like midair. I literally forgot the name. It's
Wait,
suspended
what?
like midair, and it's like a huge like loop, and it's like glass. The bottom is like glass, so you can see, and it's just like a huge like water. Like they drop like water. It's so like it's so nice. It's so beautiful. It's in China actually. Yeah.
I might need to Google this because this sounds
Right.
amazing.
It starts with a G. It's like Goog something. I literally saw it like an hour ago. But yeah, it's like a suspended bridge, and it's just like water coming down on the bottom.
How does one get to the bridge? Like, can you go on top of the bridge, or are you just looking down from below, above?
No, it's like you literally walk, and like the water falls under you, so you can like see like the water falling. It's so beautiful. Oh, there you go. It's called like I can't even see it. The one.
Dong Sky Garden.
Yeah, it looked really beautiful. I'm gonna go one day.
So I'm assuming you're not afraid of heights.
I actually, I am. Okay, here's the thing. Like, I am, but I'm the type of person that I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. Like, just get over it.
Okay, all right, valid.
So like,
valid.
I'm not gonna say that I will skydive because maybe not. But like, you know, certain stuff where I feel safe, I'm like maybe.
So I did do that. I was scared. I was terrified. It was fun. I would never do it again.
Right. It's like maybe for like a couple seconds, but not again.
Ooh, it really does look like Google Maps from above. Like,
No.
and
this,
honestly, huh?
No, I was gonna say like I like every time I'm like in a roller coaster or like a high places, my stomach drops. Like I literally cannot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understand that.
Right. Like I start like tingling. I'm like, oh no.
I don't like to be dropped. No. And my random question: if you could have one superpower, this is gonna be my last question. If you have one superpower, what superpower would you have?
See, I always have the same exact answer, and I always get the same response from people.
Okay, I'm excited.
So,
All right.
For me, honestly, like I would love to mind control, just because.
Elaborate.
I feel like once you can influence what other people do, like it's so much easier to change. Like, you know, like instead of like just like imagining the world, I'm gonna be like, no, you know what? Let me just mind control like the president really quick.
Okay. All right.
I
Now,
feel like the influence, you know.
how long does this mind control happen? Have you ever seen the Umbrella Academy?
Yeah.
Like I heard a rumor. So like this is hence why I'm asking. Hers seems to be like temporary, potentially. Like, do you just like?
Right. No, it would definitely be temporary. Like nothing too serious, you know, just enough to like change the policy here and there.
Okay, valid.
Right.
I can't remember what mine is, but valid. I like that. It's a little intense, but I like it.
I feel like you can definitely make a lot of change, you know, mind control. Yeah, so that's my superpower.
Oh, I remember what mine was. Mine was to whatever I read, I'd be able to like comprehend and utilize efficiently. So like I could whatever I read. So like medical books, whatever, like it just automatically would sort of like download, and I would automatically be able to like organize it in a way that I could utilize it, right? Because just having information doesn't mean that you can utilize it or you'll remember it. But if I can like figure that out, that'd be dope.
That'd be so.
Yeah.
Honestly, now I want to change my.
Because
Damn.
my whole thing is that, like, you know, like if you wanna create something that can create money, right? If you want to influence people that create influence, you can do like a whole bunch of stuff if you have the knowledge, as you said earlier, the
Right.
knowledge and the ability to do it. And if I could like do that, and that would be great, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna change my answer to that next time. Yeah.
Exactly. I will be doing heart surgery after reading a book. That would be great. What? Then you could probably bypass a lot of the expenses, right? Help
Oh,
maybe
yes.
volunteer, help like underprivileged people who need it, right? You can do
Right.
a whole bunch of
Anything.
stuff.
I would honestly just like read up on like how to invest, economics, everything. I
Yes,
know this.
yes. So, but yeah, so those are, I guess, 3 questions. And it was wonderful talking to you. What do you have? What are you going to be up to after this?
Ooh, I'm actually going back to campus. I don't know if it's a smart decision.
Wait. I have
So,
questions.
okay, let me backtrack. I go to school in Middlebury, which is like the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
Vermont. It's in Vermont, very small. They gave us because I have classes in person.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I have to like make sure everything's set to go after doctor's appointments, dentists, contacts, like because it's also in the middle of nowhere and they're not allowing us to go outside of our campus.
Got it.
So
Okay.
pretty much I'm like getting ready to leave and I leave in like 10 days. Right? Right.
Okay. All right. But you know what? At least they're going to contain the campus and it's in person, because I know some people who their school was giving them the option to live on campus, but their classes weren't going to be in person. And I'm just like, that doesn't make any
Why?
sense.
Right? I was like, why?
Thank you. This you just want extra money, but I could take this money and put it towards next semester and lessen my debt. Thanks. But if it's going to be in person, that makes sense. Okay.
Right. I mean, we'll also see how that works because we're like, I know people that came back earlier are already complaining that people are in quarantine. So we'll see how that goes and it will last that long.
Sanitize everything. Wear double masks.
I'm not leaving my
Keep
room.
yourself safe.
I'm just going to be like, if you need me, like, text me.
Basically. But that's great. Okay. So I'm going to wish you all the good luck. You're
Thank
going
you.
to graduate this year. You're going to do well.
Yeah.
You're going to live your best life. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Right.
All right, then.
Alrighty. But
Bye.
wait.
Oh,
Bye.
okay.
Anyone know how to save this? Do you know?
I do not know. I thought it saved on itself.
We're about to find out. I'm just really hoping
Oh,
that.
it's super. Oh, no, that's not
Oh,
it. I was like, that's not how.
that's not how to say it, but we appreciate you.
Right. Oh, it says once you hang up. Okay.
Okay. All right. So then.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
See you prompt. Perfect. See you later. Good luck. Make sure you want to end this live.